Hello, my name is Richard Weitz, and I am a Senior Fellow and Director of the Center for Political Military Analysis at the Hudson Institute. I'm here to talk with you about the results of yesterday's national elections in Germany, which took place on September 27th. The results were somewhat different than expected. The expectation was that we would see a continuation of office of the existing coalition between the right-of-center Christian Democrats and the somewhat left-of-center Social Democratic Party. However, it turned out that both those parties did somewhat worse than expected, perhaps their lowest showings in some 60 years, according to some counts. And what happened was some of the smaller parties, the three main parties that had been in opposition, the right-of-center Free Democratic Party, the left-wing Linke, the left party, and the Green Party, environmental party, did better than expected. And this might have been because they were in the opposition at a time of recession. However, Chancellor Angela Merkel, head of the Christian Democratic Party, is very satisfied. She wanted to end the coalition because it had been to something of a stalemate between the two parties and form a new government with the Free Democratic Party. And this looks like it will occur. What the major changes in terms of personnel are going to be that the head of the Social Democratic Party, Frank Walter Steinmeier, is going to be replaced by the head of the Free Democratic Party, Guido Westerwelle, as foreign minister. Now, in terms of policy changes, I think there could be several, although the closeness of the vote, even with those two parties together, the Christian Democrats and the Free Democrats, have somewhat less than a majority, but they will have enough seats in the Bundestag to form a government if they are able to resolve their coalition differences. You might see some differences in certain areas, primarily because the Free Democratic Party could shape some of the policies. In terms of domestic internal security policies, the Free Democratic Party has been very libertarian and very concerned about some proposals to increase the power of the German state to supervise German citizens. For example, they've opposed laws that would allow the German authorities to monitor usage on private computers by individuals. In addition, they oppose efforts to increase the role of the German military in domestic security. In terms of the foreign policy, you could see some changes in certain areas. In terms of Russia, it's possible that Westerwelle will take a somewhat harder line than Steinmeier in terms of human rights and some other policies towards Russia. In particular, the party does not like state intervention in the economy, and so might be concerned by some past practices of allowing Russian firms to come in and purchase large shares in important German companies. In addition, the practice of the German government uses to give the Russian purchasers of German goods credits. The idea is that it would help sustain purchases and exports of Russian goods that way, but it's been both of those policies have been somewhat controversial. In particular, there's been some controversy over Russia's taking control over Opel. There's also some tensions about Germany's dependence on Russian natural gas in particular. How that might play out is that the coalition was planning to eliminate all German nuclear power plants over the course of the next 2 decades, all commercial nuclear power plants. It appears, though, that the coalition might revise that policy and extend the life of existing plants and perhaps build some new ones. The reasons are, one, to reduce dependence on Russian gas and other foreign energy sources as a temporary holding over until the German government is able to build up use of renewable energy, whereas what they like to go. In addition, the German government, particularly Chancellor Merkel, is very committed to the international efforts to counter global climate change, which are attributed to greenhouse gases produced by oil and gas. And so nuclear energy is seen as a way of dealing with that. In terms of other foreign policies, what might happen in the short term is, in terms of the war of Afghanistan, is there'll be strong support for the war. The Free Democratic Party has always been somewhat more supportive than the Social Democrats. Now, the Social Democrats, though, supported the policy in general, though before the election, Steinmeier put forth a manifesto saying we should have a timetable for the withdrawal of German troops. It's possible that in the opposition, the Social Democrat will move even further to the left, take a stronger anti-war position, because polls show that's really where most of the German public is. They don't like the war in Afghanistan. Another issue that could arise is the question of U.S. nuclear weapons based in Germany. There are a small number, perhaps several dozen nuclear weapons in U.S. nuclear weapons in Germany for use by NATO and in some contingencies, and the Free Democratic Party has come out strongly against that, and that's possible that the United States will be required to remove those weapons. So that might take place in the context of NATO's developing its new strategic concept and in terms of negotiations with Russia. Finally, a most interesting issue is the question of conscription. Germany is one of the few countries in the NATO alliance that still, a large country, that still relies heavily on compulsory military service. Some groups, for example, the Free Democrats, would like to transition to a fully professional military, such as we have in the United States. The arguments on behalf of that are that professional soldiers will undergo more lengthy training, they'll be more skilled, that it would reduce the current problems with conscription in the sense that it looks like people are treated differently in terms of who gets waivers in terms of their background and particularly income level, and other contributions that are thought to come from a fully professional army. However, Germany has peculiar historical reasons why it's very closely tied to conscription. There's a concern that it's important to bind the German military very closely to the people. Now, this is not a current issue of concern, but in the past there's always been a worry that we might see a scenario such as we saw perhaps during World War I, in which the military would take over control of many government functions de facto. In addition, the Germans have something like what we call in the United States the Abrams Doctrine, which means that just as in the United States, we want to be able to require, some people want to require that the reserves be mobilized for any major military campaign, because that would make any president very cautious about committing military intervention overseas on a large scale, because he would know he couldn't do it just through a professional army. He'd have to use a draft or mobilize the reserves, at least in the first instance. And some Germans are attached to this notion that you would have to have use conscripts in a major military war, which would act as a deterrent. According to current law, conscripts cannot go overseas without their permission. Now, the opponents are now currently debating this issue, but it plays out pretty interestingly in terms of the German commitment to Afghanistan. It's possible that if the conscription was removed, Germany would be able to contribute more troops to Afghanistan. However, I still consider unlikely in the short term, because conscription, what is happening is that many Germans take the option, which they're allowed, of not serving the military, but giving voluntary social services, working in hospitals, community facilities, and so on. And the German economy and the German society is kind of depend very heavily on these quote-unquote volunteers. They're paid a salary like the soldiers, but it's not much. And it would require a certain change in German social economic practices to deal with that. And I'm not sure in the time of budget crisis where now the German government will do that. But this is certainly a topic we will discuss further as the new coalition starts assuming its office and taking new policies. Thank you for your attention.